covered. And we also talked about how there are 4 elements of a story, not necessarily in this order, but for the most part, these are an essential piece of any story that we tell. Characters are really important. If you were able to hear the Glenna story about the Maasai warrior, and she described how he was very tall and he was very proud looking and very handsome, and she described that character, and she described the enthusiasm he had as he was sharing the water story on each side of the equator. So character development is essential and the most important piece of any story. If we're telling a story from our perspective or from our past, our experience, we want to explain how we were feeling at the time, or the frustration we may have felt, that sort of thing. In a story, there's typically some sort of a conflict and some sort of a struggle. Excuse me. To give an example, if I were to tell a story about how I really wanted something, but I didn't have the money to be able to afford it, like I'd like a new iPhone 5, but I can't afford it right now, or I'm not up for renewing my phone right now, that could be the conflict. The struggle might be, how can I save the money, or how can I convince someone else in the family to upgrade and then we trade phones or something like that. So that could be the conflict and the struggle. And then the goal is typically, what are you trying to accomplish? Why were you in the situation you were in? Because typically it was to achieve a goal. So I thought I'd share just a quick story that came to mind as I was thinking about these elements of a story and just to demonstrate the 4 elements. My daughter recently, my daughter's 13, and 2 years ago when she was 11, she was nominated to join the organization People to People. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what People to People is, but it's an organization nationwide that sponsors students and takes them on group trips to other countries. And they get to experience the culture, they get to try the food, they get to go on different activities that are typical of that culture. It's a really wonderful organization. My niece, just on a side note, has traveled in many places around the world with People to People. And I know a couple of you said that you were from India, and my niece actually went to India last summer. And she said it was just incredible, and the pictures were just beautiful. She loved it there. But back to my story, my daughter wanted to join, and at age 11, the place that they would take them was to Canada. Well, it sounded like a fabulous program. There are plenty of chaperones, and I thought, well, Canada's not too far. At least it's on the same continent. Maybe I'll be okay with it, and I'll go ahead and go to the meeting. And so we went to the meeting, and it's several teachers during the summer that take them. It felt quite comfortable. But then, of course, at the end of the presentation, they tell you how much it costs. And this trip for 12 days to go to Canada was going to cost $3,000. And I said, oh, honey, for $3,000, the whole family could go on vacation. I just don't think that we're going to be able to make this happen for you. And she was so determined. She said, Mom, if I can raise the money, can I go to Canada on this trip? I really want to go that badly. Well, she's a quite studious and ambitious young girl, and I'll be darned, she actually did. She created a cookbook and sold copies of that to raise money. She had fundraiser parties at the local roller skating rink, and she raised almost all of the money. With help from us, Mom and Dad, and from her grandparents, she earned all the money, and she was able to attend the trip to Canada. And I thought that was such a good example of course, I love telling it because it's about my daughter, but in terms of characters, she, of course, being the main character, the conflict being she really wants to go on this trip, but it's very expensive. So she struggled, and she earned the money so that she could go on this trip by herself. And ultimately, she achieved her goal through her ambition, and we were just very, very proud of her.